There's almost like a bit of a blame game that sometimes comes along. It's like, oh, well, you should know this, or why wouldn't you upkeep your Finnish language skills, or why would you do this? And it's like, life just sort of happens, and you can have the best plan in all of the world, and then life will just come and happen. And so I think that kind of like rage of not being received how I expected, I had a lot of expectations of like how welcoming it would be, you know, to move back home. All of that rage from realizing that actually that's not reality kind of sort of pulled me back out of the depression that I was in. But I was in a bad way. Like that first year was bad.
You can imagine.
Yeah, and it was like, I've never been that low, and there's been worse things that have happened in my life, and I've never been that low, because I don't tend to think of myself as a person who's like easily broken down into like a state of despair. I don't know, I was just watching my friends in the UK like getting married, buying houses, having kids, I don't know, like climbing up their career ladders and stuff, and I was just sort of like in a dead-end job. It was a job I didn't dislike, I enjoyed it, it was fine, but I kind of looked at
people, inclusiveness of talent and people all together. But just in case there was something forgotten, what would you tell the Minister of Interior?
I don't know if I've got anything that important to say that they would listen. I think my main thing throughout this whole talent boost and all of these other
So yes, so welcome Tina to Inspire Warriors show, and great to have you here. You are here because you're the warrior, and not very usual type of the warrior. You are the warrior because you are a kind of a stranger in your own country, and you came back and you continue pushing until you realize that it's possible. So feel free. This show is pretty new, and I'm very happy to have diversity of experiences. And maybe you can start to tell everybody who you are and what's your story. Why are you here? Why do I think that you're a stranger in your own country?
Yeah. So some people might know about this already because I talk about it a lot, but anyone who doesn't know, I moved to the UK with my family when I was 10. And then I grew up in the UK and lived there for almost 2 decades. And then I felt like I was homesick. So I decided to move back to Finland, and I wanted to start studying again, wanted to do my master's. So I just thought, I'll just move back home, which turns out is not how that works. You don't just sort of move back after 2 decades and automatically become, a local. So I moved back in 2015, and it's been an interesting process ever since. I am studying now, and I have learned Finnish again, which I had completely forgotten whilst I was in the UK. So that added to a feeling of foreignness, I guess, when I returned. But yeah, so definitely not a very Finnish Finn. So that's probably why I'm a bit of a what did you call me? A foreigner in my own country, or a stranger? Yeah,
exactly.
So I've lived here now, sort of on and off for 6 years almost, and it's starting to feel a little bit more comfortable. But the homesickness has turned into like a weird identity thing, a weird identity crisis over the years. That's kind of like the main essence of it, really, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So, what's your identity now? Are you Brit or are you a Finnish person?
That's a scary question. I always thought I was a Finn who just lived abroad. I just thought, I'm Finnish, but I live in the UK. I came to Finland and I was like, hey, I'm back. I'm a Finn. And everyone looked at me and I was like, no, you're not. It was an interesting conversation to have with people, because there's very specific identity criteria that make up being Finnish, whatever that means. And everybody has a slightly different list. So you can't ever really fully fulfill any of it. It's sort of like a lifelong process almost, because every time you tick some of the things or all of the things on somebody's list, another person comes along with an entirely different one. Maybe some overlapping items, but essentially completely different list. So, so not Finnish. Turns out I'm very, very British in a lot of the ways I do things or think about things or communicate. And these are kind of like general stereotypical overviews, because again, what does being British mean? It's a country of 60 million people. It's, but like the sort of typical traits that you pick up from those around you, they were very much British compared to how people here maybe would do things. So and now that I've lived here for a while, I don't really know. I think it's kind of a mishmash of both. I've sort of like combined the best, I hope, of both worlds. And I'm trying to figure out how that looks and how my personal life and my own identity looks, because I'm not officially British. I just lived there for a long time. I don't have a British passport. I'm not going to be living there anytime soon because Brexit. So, it's an interesting one, because it kind of evolves day in, day out. Like every day, every week, I feel a little bit different. And then I spent a year in Australia, and I was like, oh, maybe I could just move to a third country and just pick up a whole new identity. Maybe I just do that, because it just felt almost a little bit easier to kind of not deal with either one of my actual sort of identities or roots or anything. It was just easier to go somewhere where I enjoyed being and then just exist there and learn to live how locals there live. So,
So, when you came back to Finland, obviously they didn't think you were one of them necessarily. Or what was the reaction from the Finnish people?
Yeah, I came back and I was waiting for like this warm welcome. I was waiting for people to go, oh, come on in, like, welcome back to your motherland. And the reaction was always, where are you from? Which was quite hurtful at the time, because I was like, hey, I'm one of you guys. And everyone was just constantly sort of questioning or delegitimizing or just like criticizing me, the way I do things, the way I think about things, how I speak Finnish, because I speak it with an accent. I speak it like somebody whose second language is Finnish. Not like too badly, I don't think, but it's noticeable if you know that I'm not like a native speaker of Finnish anymore, because it's not my mother tongue. We started speaking English at home when I was 13, my request. And it just kind of went by the wayside, and then I had to pick it up as an adult here. And I think I've done fine. I think I've, ticked a lot of the boxes of like learning the language, but there's always some things that you don't know or some things that you miss or whatever. So that was like a massive point of critique, because as a person who holds a Finnish passport, who has Finnish parents and grandparents and great-grandparents and a very Finnish name, like a ridiculously Finnish name, it's not appropriate for me to not speak Finnish as my mother tongue, is basically the undertone of what I've been told. So, yeah, and it's not like I'm even a Swedish-speaking Finn. I'm just a random English-speaking Finn, which is worse because it's not even one of the official languages. So it's just a made-up thing. But yeah, so it was an interesting reaction I got. It wasn't very warm. It wasn't very welcoming. It if anything, it was more along the lines of, why did you come back? And if you don't like it, or if this isn't suitable, or if you can't figure out how to bend yourself into the mold or the box that we have prepared for you, then off you go. So a lot of the earlier years of me living in Finland, I was sort of just killing time, waiting to leave again, because I didn't see a possibility of making any sort of life for myself in Finland. I didn't see any way of finding like a place for me. I didn't feel like there was any kind of acceptance or any interest even in really understanding my background and why I ended up living my life how I did, being in the UK. It wasn't a choice that I made as a 10-year-old. It was like a family choice. And unfortunately, as a 10-year-old, you can't live by yourself in Finland, however much you might want to. And I don't regret moving to the UK. I have no regrets about that. But it's just, there's almost like a bit of a blame game that sometimes comes along. It's like, oh, well, you should know this, or why wouldn't you upkeep your Finnish language skills, or why would you do this? And it's like, life just sort of happens, and you can have the best plans in all of the world, and then life will just come and happen. And that's what happened. We had lots of plans. My dad was supposed to speak Finnish with us, and my mum was speaking English, so we could have a bilingual family setting and stuff. And the family unit didn't work like that. And things happened, and personal life happens. And you can't do anything about that. You just have to kind of roll with the punches. And that's kind of what we did. That's what I did. I've just learned to kind of deal with whatever.
How did you deal? I mean, I would be very stressed if I realized that I don't have a reception that I was expecting.
Yeah, I went through a little bit of a depression that first year. I did not. I considered moving back to the UK, but then I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and that felt like a failure. So that wasn't an option. And I don't like to give up on things until I know that I've given it my all. So for better or for worse, it's probably not a great trait. But I felt like I had to prove something to myself or to other people in the UK maybe, or just kind of like cutting off my nose, just like my face, I wanted to prove to Finnish people that like they're not going to run me out of the country just because that would be the easiest option. And that's kind of a little bit like, so it kind of came out of spite almost. I was like, no, I'm going to stay and I'll learn Swedish, and then we'll do everything in Swedish, because there was this issue with the Finnish language and me not being perfect at it. So I was like, fine, I'll become Swedish speaking then. It's fine. So I think that kind of like rage of not being received how I expected. I had a lot of expectations of like how welcoming it would be, you know, to move back home. All of that rage from realizing that actually that's not reality kind of sort of pulled me back out of the depression that I was in. But I was in a bad way. Like that first year was bad.
You can imagine.
Yeah. And it was like, I've never been that low, and there's been worse things that have happened in my life, and I've never been that low, because I don't tend to think of myself as a person who's like easily broken down into like a state of despair. And for some reason, I think identity is just a very sensitive topic. And I think a lot of people might agree that it's hard to be very resilient when the entire essence of you as a person is under question, and who you are becomes some sort of like a negative aspect for everyone. It's very hard to be resilient, because you you sort of lose confidence in yourself, and your own, just everything, your ability to do anything. So that was unpleasant. I would put it like that. That was really unpleasant. But I managed to then sort of, by some weird miracle, I managed to get a job, which kind of helped alleviate some of this stress, because then I could put myself into this professional identity. And I had a job doing some media stuff, and I've got a bachelor's degree in media production. So I was very happy to be able to do something creative and get kind of into the working world, and that was nice. And I applied for university. I managed to get in, and then I kind of came to Jyväskylä, which is where I live now, from Helsinki. And that sort of saved my mental health for the time being, because it gave me focus. And it gave me a bit of understanding, because I'm studying intercultural communication, and I'm able to actually, through like all of the theories we go through about, communication and how groups of people in groups and out groups, how they communicate and kind of like think about certain things, and how there are conflicts or there aren't conflicts, or how we might consider things to be conflicts that actually are just misunderstandings and stuff. I've been able to kind of really understand maybe the phenomena of being a returnee, and the sort of psyche of this very tight-knit society that is Finland, because it's a very in-group kind of society, in my opinion, that there has to always be this very, close sort of bubble. And so I understand it better. When I understand things, I can kind of relax a little bit more. So I think I've chilled over the years a little bit more. But that first year was horrific. Would not wish it on my worst enemy. That was bad. So
I can imagine. I mean, coming back to a place where you feel like a foreigner can be terrifying. But me type of a foreigner should be more terrified, and I thought maybe you could have it a bit easier. But apparently
not.
You at least have a name.
Yeah.
So you could introduce yourself at least by writing, and so but it's understandable. What was the time that you felt like, now I need to go back to my country, and how was the feeling while making this decision when you decided to come back to Finland?
When I lived in the UK and before I decided to come back, I don't know. I think I was just watching my friends in the UK, like getting married, buying houses, having kids, I don't know, like climbing up the career ladders and stuff. And I was just sort of like in a dead-end job. It was a job I didn't dislike. I enjoyed it. It was fine. But I kind of looked around and I was like, nah, there has to be something more. And I'd wanted to go for years. I'd wanted to go back to university. And I've been toying with like applying for some universities in London, but it's really expensive. And I couldn't find a course that was exactly sort of what I wanted. It wasn't speaking to me. So then I just hesitated. And then I realized that actually I had an interview. I was sort of like asked specifically to go for an interview for a job where they needed a Finnish speaking person. And I went to it, but I said, I don't have the level of Finnish language that you would require for this. But, the recruiter was like, no, go for the interview anyway. So I went there and I had to do some writing tasks, and it didn't go well. But they would have wanted me had I had the Finnish skills, or that was the impression I got from them. So then I was like, well, why don't I fix that? I could have a job that might be more interesting. I could have a job that I might like more. I would have more options. So it was a combination of wanting to get my Finnish language back up to a level that was passable at the very least, or fluent if possible, which is kind of where I'm at now. And then also being able to study and really kind of get back into academia and do something that kind of really interests me or that I'm really passionate about. So those were the two main reasons. But also I just felt this sense of homesickness for a home that has not been around for about 20 years. So that was, it was a combination of all these things. And here we are. So, great life choices.
Yeah. I noticed that you have a podcast, or at least you have been running a podcast. What made you start that podcast?
So since I came back from Australia, like a gap year, I came back, and my friend and previous classmate, Iris Ranta, who I do the podcast with, she had gotten really into this topic of talent boost, which is it's a really hot topic right now in Finland, and it's about getting international talents into Finland and getting them into the workforce and kind of picking up this Finnish workforce that is aging and kind of not really coping, and we don't have all of the skills that we would need and all of this stuff. And so I started attending a lot of webinars on this topic. I started to read a lot about it, and I started to kind of be involved in this discussion quite a lot. And I had some opinions about the way it was going. I had a lot of insights that I wanted to sort of share. And Iris, she actually did her thesis, her master's thesis, on the topic of talent boost and talent hubs, specifically using City of Jyväskylä as a case study. And it's a really good thesis. So if anyone is interested, go and read it. But so through that, we kind of realized that we had a lot of topics that we could discuss, and I think would interest a lot of other people as well, hopefully. It's kind of a little bit on the back burner at the moment because she's just started a new job, and it's, I've been trying to get my thesis done, but eventually I will get that back up and running full force. But and we're kind of wanting to get guests on and people to talk about their own experiences as well. So at the moment, it's just me and Iris discussing certain topics and kind of opening up our opinions about them and giving maybe not tips, but just sort of asking some questions about how things could maybe be done differently, or have we asked all the right questions, basically, which is, quite important to, ask the right questions before you start creating, a master plan of how to fix all of these problems that we haven't understood. So that's kind of where that stemmed from. And I really enjoyed it, but need to be more actively kind of posting those. We've got 4 episodes waiting to be edited and posted. So season 2 is on its way at some point.
Oh, wonderful! Yes, someday. And what was the name of your podcast again?
It is Kykyjako, and for anyone who isn't familiar with Finnish, kyky means skill, and jako means to share. So, but it's kind of spelled in a fancy way. So it's act, and co. So it's kind of skill and community, skill and, company. It's, it kind of encompasses a lot of grassroots level inclusive things in the title in a way, I guess. So, that's what that is.
Yeah, it's a very, very, very nice podcast. I have listened to it several times, and that's why I came to know you. And I think the question of talent employment is for internationals is very important to be addressed. And I think when a Finn is addressing it, now you are a returnee Finn, you have a category. It makes much more sense in a sense that you understand 2 backgrounds there, and also you understand the pains of the person trying to get into work, but you're also communicating it through the discussion, which is actually very, very important and very nicely way of getting the feedback, so to say. What do you see? This is just to the employment gaining possibilities for internationals. What do you see as the biggest problem or challenge to get work in this country?
Yeah. I don't know what else the individuals themselves could do. I think they are doing absolutely everything that a person who wants to get a job can do. There are only so many CV clinics a person can go through before it becomes completely farcical. So I think what the problem mostly is on the side of Finnish society, which won't make me very popular, I'm sure, but that's what I think the problem is. We have sometimes this idea of like, better the devil you know, like you need to know the person you're going to employ, or there's like this trust thing. We like to know that we can trust the person. But the thing is that that's all very subjective as well. So this kind of idea of somebody recommending a person they know for a job, for example, it can be really problematic because you don't know what their sort of their bar for what is trustworthy is. So then it it's just as big a risk really to recruit somebody that, I think we just don't have a very open recruiting culture. I don't like using the word culture as an intercultural communication student because it means so many things. But if we're talking about work culture or the culture of recruitment and how things are done, it's not very trusting, it's not very open, and it's kind of almost I hear this a lot when people say, well, what if we need to get rid of the person? Once we employ somebody, what if we need to get rid of them? And then there's so many laws that protect employees in Finland. And my first question is, why do you want to get rid of them? Like, why, if you're going to do the recruitment properly, why would you need to get rid of them? And so my automatic reaction is, why would you assume it's going to go wrong when you could just hope that it goes right? Like, why the pessimism? Where is that coming from? Because, I don't know, I'm just used to in the UK, for example, when I was in Australia, I didn't know anybody there, and I managed to get 2 well-paid office jobs. I have a lot of experience in admin, and they looked at my CV, they spoke to me, and they were like, "Cool, come on in." And I've had all of about 2 jobs in Finland in the last 6 years. So there's like this kind of comparison between the trust system and stuff. But in the UK, you don't have to have a master's degree to get a job in something at an entry level. You get a job. You might have a degree, you might not have a degree, you might have a PhD, whatever. But you are taught the job. You learn the job. And there is this understanding that everyone is capable of learning, be whatever job. I've had lots of jobs that I didn't have any background in that specific field or in that specific job, and I've learned it and I've excelled at it. Yeah. And there's no reason why a person couldn't do that. And I know firsthand that people are very adaptable. They are very good at learning new things. That's the nature of people. So when I hear people saying here in Finland that, oh, we need somebody with a master's in this very specific thing and 3 years experience and stuff, and I just feel like, but that's an entry-level job, and I know that a person can learn that if you give them a couple of months and proper onboarding. So for me, like, that's where the problem is. I don't feel like the individual can do anything more, because the amount of hoops I see people jumping through in Finland just to get a basic role that might not even be paid, but would give them experience that they hope might get them a paid job. It's painful to watch. It's really upsetting to watch. There's a lot of talented people in Finland who are just they're not even seen, like, people aren't given enough of a chance, I don't think. So I don't know how to fix that issue. I feel like that is the issue. It's like this lack of openness sometimes in the Finnish workforce. There's kind of inner circles, and we like to recruit from our own networks and stuff, which isn't particularly healthy in the long run. You get what you've ordered, kind of. What's that quote? I can't remember who it's by, but it's this: the epitome of like insanity is doing the same thing, expecting different results. And I kind of feel like that's Finnish recruitment a little bit. It's we're just doing the same thing, but then we expect to have a very inclusive and diverse and intercultural and international setting. We keep recruiting the same people. So I'm not sure how that's going to work. I'm not sure how that's actually going to happen. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on that, I guess.
It's changing. There is some development.
Very slowly.
That you think like that as well.
Very slowly.
Yeah. We hope the future is bright. With these returnees, I don't know if it's a concept or act that the group here in Finland. Do you have any support systems that will welcome you back to the country and acculturate you to Finland and potentially introduce you to work or job, or at least ask you, oh, you're from the United Kingdom, what's there?
None that I've experienced. I have seen, for example, Suomi Seura recently, like last year, this sort of 2021, we're talking about having some sort of a program for returnees because they deal with like these expat Finns. So obviously this returnee aspect is quite close to their area of expertise and stuff. I haven't heard much about what's happening with that, if anything is happening with that. So I would actually need to have a look into that a little bit more. But I personally have not received, nor have I been told about any government-specific support, although I have been told that actually returnees were eligible to do this, in the first 3 years that internationals can go through like language-related things from their toimisto or whatever, this kotoutuminen. So apparently returnees are able to do that as well. But when I moved to Finland and I asked about the possibility of doing any language studies, because my Finnish was poor to non-existent at the time, I had just had a basic conversation with somebody on the phone at the toimisto, so T office, who said, nah, your Finnish is fine, you can just start applying for jobs. Bearing in mind that I didn't know how to write an official email, let alone a cover letter or a CV or any of this stuff. It was an interesting experience. So I don't know if that's changed over the years. I would hope so, but I'm quite skeptical since I speak to a lot of returnees because of my thesis topic, and I don't hear great things about the return process from any of them. So it's something that it's kind of like you're an expat when you're abroad, and then as soon as you're on Finnish soil, you just become a Finn, and then you're just sort of expected to know things that you weren't here to learn. So it's a bit of an impossible task almost to kind of settle yourself back in, and it would be really important for there to be some sort of proper process, because a lot of returnees, they didn't leave as adults, they left as children. They're coming back basically as foreigners with Finnish roots. And this kind of ties into this talent attraction and retention, because to be an international talent, you don't have to be a foreigner. You can be a returnee who's spent the majority of their life elsewhere and has that knowledge. So why would you not want to tap into that when that is, especially with the pandemic, people are moving back, in larger amounts because, you kind of have to from some countries, or people have lost their jobs and then they kind of think, what do we do now? Why would you not want to tap into that expertise and that experience and that network? We're so obsessed with networks in Finland. Why do you not want that international network from the internationals or the returnees? I don't understand. So I think that's a massive missed opportunity to not have a proper system in place to really kind of settle them in Finland, because the thing is that a lot of returnees, they leave again as soon as they can. They leave again because they realise that they just feel better outside of Finland, because it's just a bit more welcoming, it's just a little bit more accessible. They might have a foreign partner who isn't able to access, a workplace in Finland or whatever. So a lot of people leave. It's yeah, it's kind of sad because, some people want to bring their children here and bring them up in Finland. It's a very safe place for children. So to have to leave because you struggle to settle down in your home country, or the country that is officially, your place, that's it's not great. So, yeah.
Have you ever felt so down that you said before that you were thinking maybe you want to go back, but then you decided to stay? But has there been a time that you really felt like this is almost over now? I want to really, really, really go back to where I came from.
Yeah. I mean, I've had times where I felt like I don't want to get up again. Like it got to a point where I didn't want to wake up the next day. So there's definitely been times where I've wanted to just pack my bags and leave Finland. And actually, that's why I used to go and spend a lot of my time in the UK. I used to go at least twice a year, just because I needed that time, even if it was a week, 2 weeks. I needed that to regain my sense of self. So I had the energy to come back to Finland and do the constant critique and questioning and explaining my entire life story to every stranger in a shop who wanted to know. Or it's hard to put into words how often and how consistently I was questioned about myself and my identity, and how violating that feels, like when you are just living your life and then everybody has like a question about. I've been asked to show my passport to people. I've been asked to, state the nationality of my great grandparents. Like, I've had people come up and just speak at me in Finnish to check if I'm a Finn, because they don't believe, I don't know, just like, I want to call them microaggressions, but they don't feel like microaggressions when they're on a daily basis constantly. And they sound very petty to someone who doesn't have this thing to deal with. And I understand that, but they're definitely not petty for somebody who has to live with that every day. So I used to spend a lot of time in the UK. And then I did my work experience. I had been to Fiji before, back in 2012. And I realized that actually I could take 3 months out and just go to Fiji, a place that I absolutely love. I fell in love with it when I first went there. So in 2017, I did my work experience there because I was like, just get me out here. I want to go somewhere tropical. And then with my younger brother, we actually went traveling to Australia together because he was going and I didn't want to miss on that chance to go. We went there together, and that was probably the best thing I could do for my mental health, was take a year out of living in Finland and just find my sense of self again, because I realized after maybe 6 weeks to 2 months of being in Australia that I was starting to get back to my old self. I was starting to feel confident. I was starting to feel like I could do things that I had previously kind of almost written off after being in Finland, and just feeling more and more like a shell of myself. I felt like I was shrinking myself down for other people because they felt uncomfortable with who I was as my authentic self. So I started to try and appease other people without even realizing. And then when I got to Australia, I realized actually I don't need to do that, and it doesn't feel good to do that. So I sort of found that little spark in myself again. And I'm really glad I managed to go to Australia, and I'm, really glad that kind of came back to me, because I think that's what's kept me semi-sane through the pandemic. Because I came back just as the pandemic was starting, and I think that's what's kept me sort of grounded and focused to the best extent that you can be focused during the pandemic. That helped a lot. I need the break from Finland to be able to cope with Finland, which might be hard for people to understand, but it's an essential part of my life.
Finally things started to work out, and now you are in a good place, and you are looking forward for the best.
I sort of wasn't expecting a lot from this particular year. And then at the start of at the start of 2021, I was sort of thinking like, okay, so just get the thesis done and then move to Ireland or Canada, or like just move anywhere, just get out of here. And my thesis is still done. It's still,
process.
It's in the process. It's kind of, yes. Almost, it's kind of getting there. But I managed to get a job. So I will be starting that next year. And I've managed to kind of find like a sense of contentment, I guess, in Finland that I didn't think I would be able to find. I'm starting to feel like maybe this could be home at least for a while. I don't know if I could commit to living here for the rest of my life, but I'm definitely open to living here for the foreseeable future, which did not think that would be my thought process, from the start of the year to like now at the end of it. I never thought I would say that, because I just always felt that there was no way I was going to get a job in Finland. It felt so impossible. It felt completely alien to even consider it as an option.
Yeah.
And I knew that I could walk into like even just a job that was a bit dead end, but I could walk into a job much easier anywhere else, especially in an English country, than into a job in Finland. And then I don't know what happened, but accidentally I managed to get a job that I actually really am excited to start in January. And I am so happy that I applied for it. And I'm so happy that my friend Iris forced me to apply for it, because I had given up hope. I just kind of completely lost the ability to find that confidence in myself, to feel like I could offer something. And yeah, so that happened. That's the thing that's now happening. And I'm really excited about it. So perseverance, but also a lot of luck. I think it's very risky and almost insensitive to kind of say to people, oh, just work really hard in Finland, because so much of it is like chance. So much of it is like other people giving you a chance or opportunity, and then you can't put the onus of lack of opportunities from the mainstream society onto the individuals who work so hard already. So I don't want anyone to think that, oh, I just, persevered and worked really hard, because I think a lot of it is just right place, right time sort of stuff. And I wouldn't want people to ever feel like because they haven't been able to do that, then they've somehow, it's something to do with them. Because I think it is a societal issue that we all need to work on. To kind of create the equity and equality within Finnish society for everyone, not just for those who are most likely to benefit from it, like for everyone. Exactly. So that's really important for me, and that's something that I want to work towards. Like now that I am able to do more things to contribute, for example, because I'm going to be finally able to do something that's something other than studying.
So giving back to
that's one thing that's become very important to me since I have spent so much time unemployed and doubting myself and feeling very worthless a lot of the times, like really worthless. And I've spoken to a lot of people on LinkedIn, like a lot of my connections over sort of Zoom. We've had coffees. I think I wrote like a blog about it as well. But people feel very alone and like they are failing at things that they can't fix. It's a systemic issue. It's an issue with a lot of things along the line, and one person cannot write a CV and a cover letter good enough to skip past all of those barriers and issues. So, but people are sat at home feeling very uncomfortable with themselves because they think that they are failing at something, that they're doing something wrong. So that's something that I want to really try and focus on, like trying to fix. I mean, I don't know if I can fix it, but trying to kind of work on once I am sort of in working life and I've got my life stable and stuff next year, like mentoring or, these things, they're kind of very much something that I've appreciated. I've got a great mentor And I did some mentoring in the spring through an NGO based in the UK, and there's a lot of value in that, like so much value. So I think that's something that I'm really, really passionate about starting. Like,
well, that's a dream.
Mentoring would be, that's something that I really want to do going forwards, because I think there's a lot of people who need a confidence boost. There's a lot of people who lost themselves, and I've had so much help from friends, my mentor, and family and stuff to like really remind me that I am so much more than a job that I didn't get because it was given to somebody internally, or like these things that get you down because you feel very worthless all of a sudden. You're so much more than that. You're so much more than a job that you did not get, or the fact that you don't have a job. But in Finland, it seems very important. People ask, "Hi, how are you?" or "Who are you?" or "What do you do?" When they first meet people, they're like, "Oh, hi, my name's so and so. What do you do?" And we're always talking about like our professional identities, like straight off the bat, as if that's the essence of a person. But people are so much more. So I want to kind of try and remind people to keep their dignity and sense of self intact, even if they're going through like the job searching process, because it's rough out there. It's really rough.
Wow. Yes, we hope we have a better future, and of course it requires a collective effort, right?
I mean, nobody can do anything about these things just by themselves. Like, it needs to be a societal, collective understanding that this is a thing that needs to be done, and this is how we're going to do it, and we're going to do it equitably and inclusively and authentically. Most importantly, authentically, because there's a lot of otherwise tick boxes that are just cool. We did a thing that kind of looks like it's inclusive or sort of going in the right direction, and then it doesn't, and then nothing really happens. So we need to all be very authentically proactively doing things to make the world a better place.
I think a lot of effort is going on now in Finland, and I think a lot of money is put into these type of support systems, bringing people into action, welcoming and including people. I mean, inclusiveness of talent and people all together. But just in case there was something forgotten, what would you tell the Minister of Interior?
I don't know if I've got anything that important to say that they would listen. I think my main thing throughout this whole talent boost and all of these other projects and stuff is that the grass isn't always greener. We don't always, I understand the need to bring people from abroad for certain professions, but we have so many people in Finland who kind of, we don't know what to do with them. They're just sort of, they've graduated from university and then they just kind of, they work for sort of jobs that aren't related to their field, and they're very underutilized, or they might be unemployed, or, then they retrain consistently because there's always some other thing that you need to try and retrain for and whatever. We don't always have to bring something new and shiny from abroad. We can actually have a look at the massive amount of people that we have here in Finland. We have so much talent. We have so many talented, intelligent, very people who know a lot about the world and could really help Finland focus itself and go forwards and kind of get to where it wants to go. But again, we come back down to this trust, maybe. Like, we don't trust that if we've not recruited a person from that exact specific field abroad and brought them to Finland, we don't know if they have the potential to actually do that. So having this trust that people can learn on the job, they can learn new things, they can excel at things they never knew they could do. That's the human nature. Like, that's just how we are. Exactly. I don't know why we're not looking a little bit closer to home for all of the talent that we're needing. Also, if we don't think that we have the talent that we require, then perhaps we need to have a look at the courses we offer, because a lot of those people who come and study in Finland study courses that we are offering specifically. But if those aren't the things that we need in Finland, then perhaps we need to offer courses to create the talent that we do need in Finland.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be people coming here regardless, so you may as well offer that. Obviously, that's a very simplistic way of me just fixing the world, because I don't know what all of that entails.
Yeah.
But I feel like that there's a simpler solution than constantly just recruiting people from abroad only for them to leave within 6 months because they were sold a dream that didn't really exist. Finland is beautiful, has a lot of nature, has a lot of all of these things, but there are lots of problems that we are just sweeping under the carpet as well. You know, there's like the dream, and then there's the reality, and then there's something in between where we can work towards. And I think that's something that needs to be really critically assessed, because to just sell a dream to people and then hope it creates itself is that's not going to work. You know, that's not how things work. So yeah, I just think we need to be a little bit more open to the critique that internationals are giving. I think they have very solid points and they come from lived experience. And just because Finnish people haven't experienced that, or a couple of internationals haven't experienced that, does not mean that they are not valid. They are very valid experiences, and they keep being repeated, which means that they are clearly issues. So until we address them, it's going to be very hard to figure out how to retain talents and kind of create the sort of Finland that we would like to see in 10 years' time or 20 years' time. So, yeah, that would be my message.
Yes, it's a good advice. I think it's a physical one. Gives ideas. So I'm sure someday when we have the minister watching this channel.
Send me a message, we can have a chat.
And Madam Minister, I would like to ask, if you watch this channel, this discussion, I would like to also welcome you for a discussion as well. I know that you're working very hard to make this better. And this is all about inspirations and ideations. So it's not for any negative aspects, but just to open up the possibilities for inspiring Finland.
Well, this is the thing, because it's funny you say that, because I think what people often think is that in order to have a discussion about things, it has to always be positive. It always has to be like happy and, you know, and sometimes the best discussions happen when you open up things that are very difficult to talk about, because that's when you get to the essence of the problem. That's when you get to the essence of other people's issues or why they think a certain way, or, you know, and that's where you can actually create some proper change, is where you understand that everyone's on the same page and where they want to go from there. But when you when people try and avoid the conflict or avoid the critique, everyone's sort of stepping on eggshells and nothing comes from that. So yeah, it's all positive.
It's all positive.
Like, I want Finland to be the best it can be, but also we can't pretend that we can get there without actually sweeping the stuff out from under the carpet and actually going through and seeing what the issues really are. Because if we don't know what we're working with, we can't fix it. It just can't be done, I don't think.
I think it's already the best, but what you're doing, what you're trying to emphasize here is to get the, to put the butter on the bread, so that those things which are forgotten are also looked at. And you are an experience, you are a person living. I'm sure if I bring here a person from a totally different background, not a returnee, but let's say an international, could share a lot of things. And I know personally that there is a lot of effort going on, but maybe the outside people also don't see. So this comment of yours could also be a good starting point of the people in the decision making realizing, oh, maybe these people don't know what you're doing, and they could sell these things out. So that if it doesn't happen to you, you have a reason to go and ask a question like, oh, I know this is possible. Why? So yeah. So in this case, it's good to have this type of
Yeah, I think transparency is important because I think just that creates a sense of understanding between everybody. Because you know what's happening, you know what your role is within that society, when you know what other people are doing, and you can all work together. And if everyone's working secretly somewhere behind closed doors, then it's impossible to know what you should be working on because you don't know what everyone else is doing. So I think transparency is really, really important because these are issues that affect everyone.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And
definitely.
Finally, for the fellow returnees, what type of message would you have? Be it a successful returnee or the one who is struggling now to think back and forth. What would be your message?
I would maybe, something that I would maybe have myself like to hear is like you're enough and fine as you are, and you don't need to try and mold yourself into what Finland would like you to be like, because they might not ever understand your experience. It might never be something that they understand in Finland as majority. That's okay. That's your life. That's your experience. And that's you. That's your identity. So don't shrink yourself down for other people. Don't make yourself a lesser version of yourself, which is what I've done a lot of. And just try and live your most authentic self the best you can. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it feels impossible. And it feels really unfair that it is so difficult. But the sooner you start being authentic and unfazed by people's comments or by people's opinions or by people's requests for you to be this way or that way, the sooner you can kind of get back to that sort of sense of personal balance and kind of like psychological safety in a way. Like you're not constantly having to think how you should act in whichever scenario. You just be yourself, and the people that like that will like that, and the people that don't really matter, to be honest. It's, you don't need to always worry about how you are perceived. So that would probably be what I would have liked to hear. It would have helped me a lot these years. So maybe that helps myself. I don't know.
And of course, you look towards the positives and try to challenge yourself as much as you can. Because many times we forget that we human beings are already enough the way we are. So our brains are always kind of infused to be like another person. Of course, it's good to see another person and wanting to be, but when you have to first look at yourself and use your inner possibilities to become the better version of you. I mean, that's all what matters.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you very much. This has been very insightful discussion. I think one of the kind. Yes.
Thanks for inviting me. It's been it's fun chatting and giving all my unpopular opinions on various topics.
That's great. It's fantastic. And I think you are a person who's talking, but there's so many people who think the same. And whoever will watch and listen to this, I hope my channel will stay 100 years to come. Will still relate in some things, and possibly things have changed. Oh, now it was like this, but still I'm grateful that things are working out, and the future is brighter than. So that's all what matters.
And I hope that I hope that people don't relate too much. I would hope that things have moved on in the last 6 years since I first came to Finland. So I would hope that there is less and less possibility for people to relate to me as the years go on, because that means that things are going into a better direction. That's my hope. Yeah.
Great. Fantastic.